What up YouTube? Welcome back to the Joe McFo Show. Today we're going to be talking about idealized body proportions for men. Now the reason why this topic is so important to me is because sometimes we just don't really know what we're doing. We see these books, we see these videos, and sometimes it's just not made clear as to what type of body proportions you need for a particular field you're in. In a lot of academic situations or in fine arts circles, they'll say, oh, the adult proportions of a body are 7.5 heads tall, or if you're in fashion, sometimes they'll say 8.5 heads tall. And if you're going really out there and you want to be doing like heroic renaissance or superhero characters, sometimes they'll say 9. But I think this is going to be important because I know a lot of you want to do entertainment design, and I think that this is going to be really, really helpful for you. One of the reasons it's close to my heart is because I understand how difficult it can be when someone is called out on having improper body proportions. Not that that happened to me at all, but the goal of this video is to help you guys out. So now, one thing I also want to let you guys know is there's a difference between scale and proportion. A lot of times people will get that confused and they'll say, oh, men, because they're typically taller, you know, maybe like let's say 6 feet tall or something, that they have a different proportion. They'll say they're 8.5 heads or they're 8 heads tall, and some people will say, oh, because women are typically shorter and let's say maybe 5'5" or 5'6", then they're 6.5 heads tall. Let's look at it this way. If you have a lineup of characters or people, they can all be adults, but they can be at completely different heights, right? You can have some characters who are maybe 6 feet tall, some who are 5'4", one maybe 6'7", and they can all maintain the characteristics of someone with proper body proportions. So it's just a matter of age and maturity. It has nothing to do with gender. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to the drawing. Alright guys, so I'm starting off by putting some equidistant lines here, and I'm basically just trying to get a couple of lines so that I can create the 8-head cannon. And the 8-head cannon is really good in the entertainment industry for just making it easier to divide the figure, especially when you're on a time crunch. You don't have to pull out anatomy books or something like that. So it's really easy to memorize. So I'm starting off by putting the head in that first row, and I'm starting off by putting the hairline on that first line and having the cranium or the top of the head go up a little bit above it. And the reason I do that is because the top of the head is actually on a different plane entirely. So I sort of measure 8 faces tall. That's something I learned in school, and it just makes it a lot easier for me because let's say a character is tilting his head or is wearing a hat or they have big hair or something like that. It makes it much easier to measure the accuracy of the figure. And so I find that really, really helpful whenever I'm drawing. Just think about it that way. And besides that, it really doesn't change the height of the character that much. Like, I don't think anyone's going to call you out and be like, this isn't the top of the head, it's the hairline, how dare you, you've ruined our whole production. I don't think it's really like that. So about a third of the way down from the bottom of the chin, which is at that first headline, I put the pit of the neck, which is that space in between the two collarbones. And then we have the pectoral muscles, and the nipples are at the 2 head mark, and then the belly button is on the 3rd head mark. And so far, really, this whole thing is just about noticing landmarks. That's really the key here. If you know where these landmarks are, it's going to be super easy for you to draw the figure in a realistic way. Now, if you're doing something super stylized and more cartoony, like say Family Guy style or something like that, then obviously these rules might not apply to you. This is just an idealized version of a character, but I think you need to know the rules before you can break them. So the 4th headline is going to be where the crotch is. And this is key because it actually splits the body in half evenly. So literally the upper half of the body is 4 heads and then the bottom half of the body is 4 heads, which is part of why this makes things super easy. And this is why I love this technique so much. And then at the 5th line, you'll have the mid thigh. There's nothing really that goes on there. It's just kind of, it's almost like a dead zone in a way. And then at 6, you'll have the knees. And then the lower legs, probably the calf muscle ending about where the 7 head mark is. And then 8 is where the heel goes. So what you guys are seeing me do here is I am just kind of going over the drawing again and again, and sort of like how I talked about in my previous video on the 5 tips for gesture drawing, just moving around makes things really, really simple. If you're so focused on one area, then you have the better likelihood of messing up in another area because you're not zooming out enough. Now, as I'm getting ready to start on these arms, something I want you guys to be aware of is that they're about 2 heads tall. So as you see me plotting the shoulders kind of end at the deltoid ends at about the 2 head mark or the nipple area, and then the elbows kind of come to where the belly button is, and then the wrist is about in line with the crotch area, and then the hands, if you were to stretch your hand out and put your hand to its side, it would come at about the mid thigh or the 5th line. Now, something else that you guys have noticed is I'm using the symmetry tool for this particular pose because it's straight on, and I find that to be really, really helpful when you're working digitally. It just saves so much time, honestly. Now, as I get to the feet here, I want to show you guys something that's really important. Whenever you're drawing this character straight on, it's really important to make sure you bring the feet forward past the line. And the reason for that is because we're seeing this character in perspective. So naturally, the feet are going to come forward. The heels are what rest on that 8th and bottom line. And now I'm just kind of going in, putting some more details. I didn't want to spend too long in this drawing because this isn't really something that I'm going to turn into a major character or anything. This is just a sample of what this might look like for you guys. Also, the other thing when you're doing this, guys, especially if you're drawing the figure straight on, it might look a little stiff. It might feel a bit wonky in some ways, but you know, it is what it is. Just practice this a lot and you'll get the hang of it. Something else I didn't really mention is how wide the figure is. Some people say the shoulders for men are about 2 to 2.5 heads wide. You know, I tried following that method for a while, and then it just kind of frustrated me because I didn't like going about that. So sometimes you just kind of have to eyeball it. I use a lot of reference. I looked at a lot of character designers that I really liked, such as Phil Barassa or Ryu Kiun, and they kind of gave me the blueprint for how to draw the shoulders, or at least the width for how to draw the shoulders. Something else too is for the figure, the fact that it's so easily divided, it makes it really, really nice to change the pose up. Like if you want to have them sitting or if you want to have them bent over or something like that, it's really, really nice to be able to have that in mind. So this next one we're going to do is the side view. What you see me doing with the green lines is essentially making a height chart for different portions of the face. So things like the eyebrow and the bottom of the nose and the mouth line and the top of the cranium, etc. Those things I've marked down because when you're doing a turnaround or something, you're going to want to make sure you have those exact placements. Otherwise, it's just going to look very, very off. And we don't want to do that here. We want to design characters that look really awesome. And so accuracy is key. And because the landmarks that we look for, or at least on the face, are not on the grid that we established, it's really important to do that here. Now, some of the other landmarks like the belly button or the crotch area or something like that, those are places that have a very specific location, and they're already laid out there. What you guys see me doing here is just drawing the face out, and to be honest with you, I probably spent a little bit more time on this than I needed to for the sake of this video, but one of my many faults, if you want to call it that, is the fact that I tend to be a perfectionist, and at a certain point I was like, man, should I just start this, side view over again? And I was like, nah, we're just gonna go for it, because the point is to get the lesson across and showing you guys how to draw the figure. So you can see me here mapping out the pit of the neck, where that's supposed to be. And one thing also to keep in mind, guys, whenever you're drawing the neck, you want to put it at a slight angle. Nothing in the body is straight up and down like Jenga blocks or something like that. Everything's kind of got this S curve to it, and there's a rhythm and a flow to the body. And so, the neck is kind of pushing to the left, and then the rib cage is pushing to the right, and then the hip is going to be pushing back to the left again. So be aware of that rhythm and that connection there. And basically all I'm doing is just matching where I saw it before. I have an idea of where the rib cage is. I know where the belly button is. The legs, I'm plopping that down, and I'm just getting really clear with that. So here's where I start figuring out the foot, and you'll see right here, this is where I show you how the foot is supposed to be, because the heel is on that line, that bottom line, the 8th head mark. And so with that, now you understand why the feet had to come forward in the first drawing, because now this one is just facing to the side. And so now I'm drawing this arm, and I'm making sure I just match the key landmarks, getting the armpit where it's supposed to be, right about where the nipple line is. And I don't know why I'm saying it like that. It's just fun for me. It makes the recording process fun. Also, something else you guys want to keep in mind, the arm is always slightly bent. Don't draw the arm straight up and down, because then you'll start making it look like a video game character model from like 2002, and where everything is always stiff because their arms were always straight, and it just looked weird, just looks unnatural. Now, one thing that's really key for balance, what I'm doing right here, is the foot, the butt, and the shoulder should all line up. That's how you can tell a character is balanced. When something is off, then those will not be in line with each other. So that's a really big tip for you guys. Now, the calf muscle usually stick out a little bit further, but yeah, make sure when you're drawing a character from the side that the shoulders, the butt, and the back of the heel are lined up. That's always key. And you see me having to actually push the rest of the body forward a little bit just to make that in line. All right, and now I'm just editing out a couple little details in the front view just to make the arm look a little less stiff and make it a little bit more accurate for you guys. When I was drawing this, I was kind of going on a stream of conscience. I wasn't going like printer style up and down, left to right. That's just not how I work, unfortunately. So hopefully it doesn't confuse you guys. And so now I'm gonna make things really easy for myself. I'm gonna draw the back view, and I'm just going to have it so that I kind of semi-trace over what I've already done, because the silhouette is basically the same. It's just drawing the back view now. And so now I'm drawing the back of the head, and I'm imagining what this character would look like if he was facing the opposite way. So the neck is going to come a little bit higher, the trapezius muscles are going to be exposed, and then the shoulders are going to come out like that. But it's very similar. There's very few things that change in terms of the overall contour silhouette. It's mostly just about what muscle overlaps what. That's really it. All right, drawing the back of the arms here, and instead of the inside of the elbow, it's going to be the actual elbow for that arm. You're seeing the tricep instead of the biceps. And then I'm going to be drawing the shoulder blades. And again, the symmetry tool is really good for stuff like this. You can't always get away with doing this for any project. It's very rare that you actually have a character who's straight on like that, or back view is like perfectly lined up that way. So again, for the purposes of this, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. So now I'm just drawing the legs and trying to use my knowledge of anatomy to determine what muscle goes in front of what. And so you see me make the little correction right there of where the sartorius muscle is going to be. Also in the back view and the side view, the butt is lined up with the crotch area. Sometimes people kind of forget that, and when they're drawing, they'll somehow make the butt a lot higher or a lot lower than it's supposed to be. And I don't know how people do that, but it is what it is. All right, and then just drawing the foot, and again, now it's going away from us in space, and the heels are going to line up with that 8th line. And so because the feet are going away, that's how we're going to approach that. And again, the goal for this isn't to make a perfect drawing. It's purely meant for practice and understanding how the anatomy operates. And If you guys have questions about a specific part of the anatomy, like the arm or the leg or something like that, I can definitely do a video on that. That's not going to be a problem for me at all. Obviously the back view is going to look a lot clearer than the other ones because that's the one I needed the least amount of work on in terms of properly lining up the contours. But yeah, guys, that is how I draw the figure for the 8-head cannon. So just to review, 1 head is for the bottom of the chin, 2 heads to the nipple, 3 to the belly button, 4 to the crotch, 5 is the mid thigh, 6 is the knee, 7 heads to the bottom of the calf, and then 8 heads for the heel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you next time. Peace. And as always, guys, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to see more content from me.